Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Masks Off. I'm Kim,
And I'm Tia.
and we're so excited to be here with you again this week. So I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to start with the quote. And the quote is that life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And that's by Anise Nin.
Love that quote.
Yeah, so, we've been talking about this before we started recording that because we were trying to make some marketing videos for our brand new course that's coming out, True North.
Yeah. Well, I think it's out now by the
It's
time
out.
this
It's out.
podcast.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but you can
Exactly.
still join.
You can still join. There's
No
always
worries.
time.
Yep.
But T and I wanted to make a couple of quick, 1-minute videos, and it was completely different energy from how we do podcasts, because when we're doing this podcast, we just get on, we talk with each other, and nothing is scripted when we
planned.
do or planned.
We just have our idea of what we want to talk about, but nothing like you say this, I'll say that, other than who's going to start. That's the only thing we decide before we start.
Exactly. Who's reading the quote? We find a quote and then we go with it.
Right.
But when we were trying to make the videos for our course, literally a minute long, we struggled so much to make those videos. We did several of them. And I feel like maybe it was not comfortable at all. And I think, there was just a little more of this energy of it having to be a certain way too, for me anyway, like more my mask was kind of coming on in the sense that it needed to be more professional. Nonetheless, put that aside for a moment. The fact is that doing the course in and of itself is taking courage for both you and I. Number two, to put ourselves, we're not professionals. We don't know how to do any of this videotaping, things like that.
No,
we don't. Right? We don't. So to make these 1-minute infomercials, we'll call them, took some courage.
It did. And if you saw the outtakes, who knows, maybe we'll post an outtake of one of them just for fun. Because we didn't script it, and we were very clear. We didn't want to script it, but we knew we had to touch on points, and we're like, wait, what's the point? Wait, what are we saying? Are you saying this? Yeah, it was definitely outside my comfort zone, and it took a little more courage. And we just bring this up to show how taking courageous steps, no matter how small they are, they're still a leap. They really are, because that was interesting for us.
Very interesting. And so then to just add on that, by taking the step, the risk to be courageous instead of being in our comfort zone, allows us or affords us the opportunity to grow, because now we're putting it out there that we have created a course together, which we both love putting our creativity into place. It was super fun creating it. We could just not put it out into the world and just say, who cares? But we are putting it out into the world. And so, and we have no idea what the outcome of that can be.
Right.
And yet there's so much growth in it anyway.
Exactly. So even though we've done a course together already, this is our first one we're actually asking people to pay us for. Yes. So that's why it's a little more uncomfortable.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
And I think too, for me, the little minute-long videos we did too was I didn't want to go into so much of the selling aspect, because that's not our intention really, is to be an infomercial. So we wanted to navigate it. And I think that's where the struggle was like, how do we still be us?
Yeah.
And make the points in a really short video. And because we're used to just talking like we're doing now. So it was the dance and the courage of, hey, we can still show up as you and I both are, authentically.
Right.
And do our best to get to the point as quickly as possible in a short little thing. So it was interesting, but the creating those, putting the course, because we both charge for our private services and other services, but
Yes.
for whatever reason, the energy behind this felt more courageous. Because I don't know why, but it did.
It did. And anytime you're doing, even though we have been doing masks off for a while, I still feel that, I don't know why I feel comfortable, but other times doing a video or something, there's always just more of an uncomfortability to it, I guess. So
could it perhaps be, sorry.
Yeah.
Just the thought, like the imposter syndrome, you're
now
an expert, where
of course
on our podcast, we're just us. We're not looking to be experts. We share wisdom. We share our experiences of applying that wisdom, which is what we have done our best to transfer the application of the wisdom into this course, aligning with your true north. But it's, it's okay, here we are. We know what we're talking about because we've lived it.
Yeah.
But not from we're an expert and we're better. That's not the energy we wanted to perceive. It's just, it's an interesting dance, that courageous piece.
Yeah, there's definitely an added level of pressure with the other videos versus here. So, but anytime in my life that I have taken risks and I was courageous and I stepped outside my comfort zone, I can almost always say that I had some growth. I expanded, I blossomed even more, even if it's just like something as simple as having a hard conversation. I was famous, or not famous, but is infamous. That's the word, infamous, for not wanting to have difficult conversations. Like, that was a pattern for me throughout my life that I really struggled with. I would choose to keep quiet and to keep comfortable so that I didn't have conflict with another than to speak up and say something. And that certainly limits my growth. That did block me. I'm getting much better at it now because there isn't as much of the need to have to please the other, but it can still show up. It can still rear its ugly head, and I'll need to speak up and have a really hard conversation with someone close to me or whatever. And we talked about this before, because with you, it's been much easier because I know that you will receive what I have to say, or at least I feel that you would receive more of what I have to say than some other people that I have been like in conflict with, maybe my whole life, so to speak.
Right. When we have those uncomfortable conversations with each other or someone else we know are making conscious choices of awakening, it's safer because that's like, okay, so if they get triggered, I know they're going to do the work. To look at their trigger and not just project, or even if they do project and take offense and take it personally, we're going to be able to work through it together because we have the tools, we have the wisdom. Where when you have those difficult conversations who are people who are just going to project back, get defensive, it's harder, but it's still important because then we learn how to communicate with more courage and grace for the other.
Yeah. That's a big, I'm thinking too, in particular, like even a boss, like that might be a really difficult arena to go into, is to have a hard conversation with your boss. You might feel that you're underpaid, underappreciated, or if you speak up, you might lose your job. Like, that takes a lot of risk.
Big time.
And it isn't always easy for people to take the risk of losing a job, so they may end up choosing the comfort. And then yet at some point you have to ask yourself, like, where and when is my well-being and overall like mental health, happiness, joy more important than it's not speaking up.
And I think also remembering too that sometimes choosing comfort is okay.
Let's be clear on that.
Because sometimes we do choose comfort consciously. But then you want to just continually revisit am I okay being in comfort, or is it time to push myself outside this edge a little bit and have a little more courage? And so it's that discernment that comes with courage and comfort that I think is important to talk about too. We have to discern, is it, because sometimes you could be saying, like you said, with a boss, I don't want to lose my job. I have to discern, okay, I need to make sure that I have a roof over my head and
I can feed my family.
Right. So right now I have to stick with, it may be uncomfortable to stay at that job, but the comfort of having a consistent paycheck is more important right now than tossing it all to the wind and trying to follow the next path that may or may not feed my family at that moment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up, is to just take your time with these decisions. And going back to our last episode, is really like kind of tuning in with your heart and making sure that it is in alignment and you're using discernment, that you don't jump. Because there's a lot of people that are impulsive and can jump and take risks.
Right.
So there's also balance is
Yes.
very much needed with making decisions or taking risks.
Right.
And think about when we were, and everyone is different. Everyone's level is different. If you think back, remember when, being in high school as an adolescent, taking risks, unhealthy risks, risky behavior was something, that many of us did as teenagers, and
brain appropriate too.
And right, exactly. So now
the brain is wired to take risks at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. So now if you were to take that, it wouldn't be as helpful or healthy.
Right. It brings me back to memory. It was, when we first met in person at Evolve a couple of years ago. And I don't know if you remember when Kyle Cease was speaking about courage. I don't think he used that word exactly, but like taking the leap into the next step. You can't open doors unless you take that leap, type of thing.
Yes.
You don't know till you know, and you take the leap. And I remember he used the analogy of when you jump out of an airplane. So it's the standing on the edge before you jump where it's uncomfortable. And once you jump, it's freedom. And so that discernment of standing on the edge, is this the time to jump? That's where we get stuck in our head. And we have to start to, like we talked about, I believe it was the last episode.
It was.
Are you following your heart? Is this leap following your heart? Because sometimes we think we're being courageous by making that impulsive decision, when in reality, we may just be avoiding something else and not following our heart. So we have
that's
to
a great
really
point.
Tap in.
How might that show up? That's a really good point to bring up. Like, what might that look like if someone is avoiding something and taking those risks?
Well, I think what you brought up earlier, I think simple examples are helpful because they're more day-to-day examples, right?
Right.
So your inability for the longest time to have those difficult conversations.
Yes.
So that is actually sticking with comfort, but you can talk yourself into it that, it's courageous not to push back to another because I can handle it. I'm being courageous. I'm letting things go. Right. So how many times do we tell ourselves, well, I'm just going to let that go, but actually you're bypassing.
Yes.
And you're not, that is not taking the courageous path. You're avoiding. And so I think that, at least for me, how I try to discern, first of all, I have to be balanced, balancing your backpack, or that's our free course we do.
Yes.
Body, mind, and spirit, being in alignment, trusting, tapping in. And my body tells me, once you learn how to listen to your body, my body's like, yeah, you're avoiding.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do I consciously want to avoid? Make the conscious choice to avoid, because I'm not ready to step into that courageous step yet. Because if I'm out of alignment, it's not going to be met with the same energy potentially. So I need to discern, like, is this the time? Is this the time to jump off the airplane? Hello, Kitty. So, it's knowing, is it my heart? Is it avoidance? Is it bypassing? Is it intuition? What is it? you're watching it on YouTube, you can see Archie is making his appearance. He literally thread a needle to come in front of the computer between the microphone.
He needed to show up.
He did. He's like, see, I took the leap. I threaded a needle. I can do it. So can you.
Yes, exactly. No, that's a really good point that you're bringing up.
So how does that land with you? Is anything coming up for you where you notice?
I think it's still very muddy though. It's still so hard to know like when intuition is speaking and when, I'm avoiding and when, that whole standing at the edge of the airplane. I think it can be very muddy and messy at times to really know.
Yeah. And I think that's also a disconnect, right? You talk so much about the brain, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes when it's muddy, it's because we haven't connected our heart and our brain
together,
because we're trying to justify or find the answer, right? We're looking for a solution rather than going within and knowing the solution, or the next step is already known. It's just, are we ready to tap in and listen and do it?
Yeah, exactly. So going back to just the comfort and the courage piece, I think it is just super important to really, as you pointed out, well, we have to have the balance, you have to have the discernment, be in the energy, because you can quickly make decisions thinking you are choosing courage when in actuality you are just avoiding. And then there's other little things like just taking some risks that are fun and for growth. And I was sharing with you how my daughter is taking the risk because you talked about the airplane. So I'm like, she's had 2 lessons so far to learn how to fly a plane. And this isn't like really a lifelong dream that she's always had. Like she's never said since she was little, oh, I want to learn how to fly a plane. It's a recent thing that came up for her. And yet when she does it, I can see how much her spirit expands.
I love it.
Grows. She lights up when she does it. So she's pushing herself. She's challenging herself when she's flying. And so she's taking a risk. She's using a lot of courage to get up and fly a plane. And not that we're suggesting that everyone listening to us needs to go learn how to fly a plane, but it could just be a simple thing like that. And just watch and notice if you do feel that your spirit, your energy just expands and grows. Like that's what we're talking about. And that's what the quote is talking about as well.
Exactly. And then, having grace and compassion for yourself. If you are stuck in that mucky spot.
Yes.
Just sit there for a little bit and listen and journal or go outside in nature. Find a way to connect your body, mind, and spirit so you can maybe hear with a little more clarity. And then you can choose, is this the time I'm going to choose courage, or am I going to stay in comfort? There's no right or wrong.
No.
Because you also don't want to, at least this is my feeling, you don't want to push courage too much if you're not ready.
Yep.
Because I think sometimes we force it. Because I know I have forced the courage sometimes. Then I'm like, now what? Then I get stuck in a different way. I know. So I don't regret taking that courageous step. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes I can discern for the next time, like, okay, I just want to have one more little piece that's a little clearer for me to take that next courageous step. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that does come back into that whole balance, checking in. So much work, but it's worth it. Fun. Yeah, it's worth it in the end. So I think we just really wanted to hop on today and share quickly, just because we were doing the videos and realizing how much courage it took to do them. And like, let's talk about courage over comfort.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Yeah. And if you are interested in joining our Aligning with Your True North class, where we give you practical tools to apply the wisdom that we talk about on our podcast, and many incredible wisdom teachers do as well in their books and classes, we would love to have you join us. So the link's in the show notes. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. And even though it's already started, you can join in. You have access to everything that's released, and you can join all the live classes that we do every week through the end of the month of March.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for listening. See you soon.
Bye.